Egypt was conquered by black African kings, and history tried to erase them. In the next minutes, you'll meet the warrior dynasty that marched north, took the throne of the pharaohs, and rebuilt a dying empire. And what archaeologists found buried beneath the Sudanese desert in 2003 rewrote everything we thought we knew. For nearly a century, between roughly 747 and 656 BCE, the throne of Egypt was not held by Egyptians. It was held by a line of black African kings from the kingdom of Kush, a civilization that rose along the Nile in what is now northern Sudan. They called themselves the sons of Amun. The Egyptians, reluctantly, called them pharaohs. History, for nearly 2,000 years, simply tried to forget them. They are known today as the 25th dynasty, or more dramatically, the Black Pharaohs. And their story is one of the strangest reversals of power in the ancient world. A conquered people who, generations later, returned as conquerors and saved the very civilization that had once ruled over them. To understand how this happened, we have to travel back to the land of Kush. South of Egypt, beyond the first cataract of the Nile, lay a kingdom older than most history books admit. Its capital, Napata, sat at the foot of a sacred flat-topped mountain called Jebel Barkal. The Kushites believed this mountain was the southern home of Amun himself, the chief god of the Egyptian pantheon. For centuries, Egypt had invaded Nubia, extracted its gold, taken its people as slaves and soldiers, and imposed its gods and language. But something unexpected happened. Kush absorbed Egyptian religion so completely that, by the 8th century BCE, the Kushites considered themselves the truer, purer guardians of the old Egyptian faith. While Egypt fragmented into rival warlords, neglecting the temples, the Kushites kept the rituals alive. Then came the king who would change everything, Ptah. Around 747 BCE, Ptah ascended the throne in Napata. He was a devout worshipper of Amun, a skilled horseman, and by all accounts, a brilliant tactician. To the north, Egypt was in chaos. The delta was carved up among Libyan-descended princes, each calling himself a king, each fighting the others. One of them, Tefnakht of Sais, began pushing south, swallowing city after city, threatening Thebes itself, the spiritual heart of Egypt. For Ptah, this was not a political crisis, it was a religious one. The sacred order of Egypt was collapsing. And so, around 728 BCE, he launched one of the most extraordinary military campaigns in ancient history. Ptah sailed north with his army, took Thebes without resistance, and then marched into Middle Egypt. City after city fell. At Hermopolis, after a long siege, the local king surrendered. The victory stela of Ptah, discovered at Jebel Barkal in the 19th century, describes the moment in chilling detail. Ptah entered the conquered palace, inspected the royal stables, and was furious, not at the defeated king, but at the condition of his horses. He had let them go hungry. To Ptah, that was unforgivable. He pushed on to Memphis, the ancient capital. The city was fortified, defiant. Ptah's solution was audacious. He ordered his soldiers to lash ships to the harbor walls, scale them like ladders, and pour into the city from the river. Memphis fell in a single day. One by one, the Delta princes came to bow before him. Tefnakht himself surrendered by letter, refusing to enter Ptah's presence because the king was, in Tefnacht's words, too holy to look upon. And then Ptah did something almost no conqueror in history has done. He went home. He left the defeated princes in charge of their cities, demanded tribute, and sailed back to Napata. He had not come to occupy Egypt. He had come to restore it. It was his successors who would truly rule. Ptah's brother Shabaka returned around 716 BCE and made Egypt's reunification permanent. He moved the royal seat to Memphis, revived ancient religious texts, and launched a building program that hadn't been seen in centuries. Under Shabaka and his nephew Taharka, Egypt experienced a stunning renaissance. Temples were restored at Karnak, Luxor, and Medinet Habu. Art returned to the precise, idealized style of the Old Kingdom, fused with distinctly Kushite features. Fuller faces, the double uraeus, two cobras on the crown, symbolizing the union of Egypt and Kush, and the tightly fitted skull caps that became their signature. Taharka, who ruled from 690 to 6664 BCE, is the most famous of them all. He was a builder on a colossal scale. At Karnak, the largest religious complex on Earth, he raised a single granite column nearly 21 meters high, one of the tallest freestanding columns of the ancient world. He fortified Egypt's borders, expanded trade routes deep into Africa, and is even mentioned in the Hebrew Bible, in the second book of Kings, as the king who marched out against the Assyrian Sennacherib. And that confrontation with Assyria would, in the end, undo them. The Assyrian Empire under Esarhaddon and then Ashurbanipal was the largest, most ruthless military machine the world had yet seen. Iron weapons, siege engines, cavalry on a scale Egypt could not match. In 671 BCE, the Assyrians invaded. Taharqa fought them, lost Memphis, retook it, lost it again. His successor Tantamani briefly reclaimed the country. But in 6663 BCE, Ashurbanipal sacked Thebes, the most sacred city in Egypt. The Black Pharaohs retreated south, back across the cataracts, back to Napata. The 25th dynasty in Egypt was over. But here is what makes their story so haunting. They didn't disappear. The Kushite kingdom continued for another 1,000 years, eventually moving its capital further south to Meroe. And the kings there kept building pyramids. Smaller, steeper, with sharper angles than Egyptian ones, but pyramids nonetheless. Today, in the deserts of Sudan, there are more pyramids than in all of Egypt, over 200 of them. Most travelers have never heard of them. Most history textbooks barely mention them. In 2003, archaeologists led by Charles Bonnet uncovered a pit at Kerma in northern Sudan, containing 7 massive granite statues deliberately smashed of the Black Pharaohs themselves, Taharqa, Tantamani, and others. Someone, perhaps Egyptian, perhaps Assyrian, had tried to obliterate their memory. They almost succeeded. For 2.5 millennia, the dynasty that saved Egypt was written out of its own history. Only now, slowly, are their faces emerging from the sand. If this story moved you, hit subscribe and join Mysteries of History. There are forgotten kingdoms, erased rulers, and buried civilizations waiting in every corner of the ancient world, and we're just getting started. Ring the bell so you don't miss what comes next.